My name is Leah, I'm 34, and being a single mom to my 12-year-old son Eli has been the hardest and best thing I've ever done. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're from, and please hit like and subscribe if family drama hits close to home. Because what happened at my sister's baby shower started as cake and compliments, and ended with a single sentence that blew our perfect family to pieces. I grew up in the Miller house under a ceiling of spotless expectations. My mother, Margaret, believed life should unfold in one clean line: college, respectable career, marriage to a suitable man, then children, exactly in that order. Any detour was failure. My father, Charles, rarely contradicted her, his silence was agreement wrapped in politeness. My sister Vivian never missed a step. She glided into an Ivy League degree, slid into a high-powered job, and married Richard, a well-connected businessman from an impeccable family. Their wedding was a parade of crystal and congratulations. I can still see my mother's face that night, pride turned into a permanent smile, as she introduced herself as mother of the bride to anyone within earshot. I went another way. While Vivian stacked achievements, I filled sketchbooks. I chose art school over internships and fell in love with Noah, a charming, talented classmate who swore he understood me better than anyone. At 22 I found out I was pregnant. He promised we'd make it work, marriage, degrees, the whole plan, until 3 months later he vanished, leaving a folded note that said he wasn't ready. When I told my family, my father stared at the wall, my mother cried like I'd died. Vivian's look mixed shock with a wince of superiority. "You're going to fix this, right?" my mother asked, unable to say the word out loud. When I said I was keeping my baby, disappointment thickened the air of our house. My mother pivoted to adoption. "You can still have a normal life. You can still find a good husband who won't hold this mistake against you." But Eli was never a mistake. The first time he kicked, something in me anchored. I finished my degree online, took freelance design jobs between doctor visits, and learned to stretch time like canvas. The beginning was a bruise of sleepless nights and overdue bills. Then clients began to return, to recommend, to trust. I built a steady roster and a small life that felt honest, a cozy 2-bedroom apartment with paint under the light switches and plants in mismatched pots. It smelled like coffee and fresh paper. It sounded like pencils tapping and Eli humming when he worked on his stories. Eli is gentle, precise, and sharper than most adults I know. He loves science labs and writes eerie little tales in the margins of his homework. He knows enough about his father to understand the shape of our past without having to live in it. I made sure he had men to admire: my mentor Arthur, who critiques kindly and takes us to gallery openings, and my cousin Nathan, who teaches Eli to pitch a tent, gut a fish, and keep a promise. Our truce with family is seasonal. We show up for holidays and big moments, smile in photos, and go home early. My mother still introduces me with a disclaimer: "This is my younger daughter, Leah, she's quite the artist." The quite carries a soft apology, as if art were a nice hobby you eventually outgrow. With Vivian, the gap widened. She was promoted to vice president, Richard's ventures took off, and they moved into a glass and stone house on a hill with a view that made even the sky look ambitious. 6 months ago, at Thanksgiving, Vivian stood to announce her pregnancy. The room erupted. My mother cried happy tears. My father opened a bottle that had been waiting for a milestone. Amid the applause, I noticed Richard stepping outside again and again, taking calls in a tight voice, returning with a practiced smile that didn't warm his eyes. I told myself it was business. I also didn't quite believe myself. The phone rang on a Tuesday while I was finishing a brand deck. My mother never calls to chat, she calls to inform. "Leah," she said, crisp as a napkin. "Vivian's baby shower is this Saturday. 2 o'clock. At the house." "Thank you," I said. "Eli and I will be there." A pause. "You're bringing Eli?" These events are really more for the women. Eli is family, I said. He's looking forward to seeing everyone. Another pause, longer. Then the sigh I know by heart. Fine. Please make sure he's appropriately dressed. And you, too. Some of Richard's associates' wives will be there. Translation received. We'll be presentable. And Leah, she added, tone tightening, let's keep things pleasant. Vivian's in a delicate condition. This is a happy day. Meaning, no mention of my path, my choices, my son. The approved story only. That night, Eli and I cooked dinner. He's precise with a chef's knife, squared knuckles, even dice. So we have to go? He asked without looking up. Grandma stares at you like you did something wrong. Aunt Vivian barely speaks to us. They're still our family, I said. A new baby is something to celebrate. Will Richard be there? His voice thinned a little. It's his house and his baby, too. Eli's jaw worked, then settled. I don't like how he looks at you. Like you're less. I felt the truth of it land. Some people judge what they don't understand, I said. That doesn't make them right. It still feels wrong. I know. Our job is to be ourselves anyway. He nodded, unconvinced but loyal. When we moved to gifts, I showed him the artisan baby blankets I'd been eyeing, organic cotton, tiny stitched birds along the border. Pricey enough to pass my mother's silent test. Eli's eyes lit. Can I make the card? He drew a stork with a ribbon in its beak, clean lines, and a sly smile, like the bird knew a secret. The week slid by. I wrapped the gift in heavy paper and tied it with natural twine. I found a dress that felt like me but tamed, navy, soft floral print, sleeves I could roll if I needed to breathe. Saturday morning, Eli was unusually quiet. He kept checking his phone, brow set in a way I didn't recognize. Everything okay? I asked. He startled. Yeah. Fine. We drove to the hill where Vivian and Richard's house sits like a glass museum for people who don't drop things. The circular driveway was already a gallery of glossy cars. As I parked our sensible sedan, I felt that old pinch of not enoughness, and then Eli's hand touched my sleeve, just a brush, and the feeling loosened. We walked to the door. Behind the glass, pastel balloons floated like captured sighs. I rang the bell. It opened on Margaret, immaculate in pale pink, eyes flicking from my hem to Eli's collar, issuing the same microscopic audit as ever. A quick nod, passed, barely. You're right on time, she said. Most guests are here. Inside, the rooms were staged in soft creams and flowers, a banner strung across the far wall, "Welcome, Baby Harrison." Voices rose and fell in curated warmth. Clusters of women balanced flutes and compliments. At the center, Vivian sat in a ribbon-draped chair, glow-engineered by perfect hair and good lighting. She waved us over with a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. I'm glad you could make it, she said, hugging me lightly. To Eli, how nice. The kind of nice that means necessary. Richard hovered nearby in a suit too formal for the occasion. He gave me a nod, then turned to Eli with a practiced, jovial tone adults use when they're not sure how to speak to children. Eli only nodded back. His gaze, cool and careful, moved between Richard and Vivian as if measuring something I couldn't see. Why don't you get some food, my mother suggested, steering us toward the buffet as if we might stain the upholstery of the moment. We filled plates. A woman from Vivian's college years materialized with a syrupy smile. Leah right, isn't it? Are you here alone today? I'm here with my son, I said, gesturing to Eli, who was choosing a cookie with almost scientific care. How lovely, she cooed, the word soft with pity. Another relative joined to remark, it must be hard without a father in the home. Boys need that male guidance, don't they? I felt Eli go still beside me. Eli has wonderful role models, I said evenly. And he's doing exceptionally well. Of course, she said, already dismissing the idea. I steered us to a small table near the edge of the room. From there we could watch the theater unfold, Vivian receiving gifts, my mother orbiting like a satellite, Richard working the room with an easy charm that left no fingerprints. Eli grew quieter, thumbs brushing his phone, eyes darting now and then to Richard with a look I couldn't decode. And somewhere between the pastel centerpieces and the clink of glasses, a promise formed in the back of my mind: today, I would keep my head down. I would be polite. I would not give anyone a reason to say I didn't belong. I didn't know that the reason was already in the room, alive, alert, and sitting right beside me. The living room hummed with polite laughter and the sound of crystal glasses clinking. Vivian sat like a queen in her ribbon-draped chair, glowing under the chandelier's light, while my mother hovered nearby as if her job were to orbit perfection. When it was time to open presents, the crowd gathered into a half-circle, phones poised for pictures. Vivian's hands moved with a grace that looked rehearsed, peeling away layers of pastel paper and tissue. Each outfit, each gadget, each tiny pair of shoes was met with squeals and applause. I stayed near the back with Eli, holding our box wrapped in heavy cream paper and tied with natural twine. "Leah," my mother hissed, spotting me in the shadows. "Bring your gift forward." Reluctantly, I placed it on the table. When Vivian reached ours, she unwrapped it in one fluid motion. "Oh. A blanket set. How nice." Her eyes didn't linger on the intricate embroidered birds, nor did she hold up Eli's carefully drawn card. She set the package aside without another word and reached for the next brightly wrapped box. "That blanket cost $150, Eli muttered. She acted like it was nothing. "It's okay," I whispered back. "The baby will be warm. That's what matters." But the sting was there, hot and undeniable. Especially when the very next gift, a store-bought baby monitor, earned applause and a chorus of admiration. Eli squeezed my hand. His young face was steady, but I could feel the tremor in his grip. Lunch followed. White tablecloths, fine china, little name cards at each place. Vivian and Richard sat at the head table with my parents and the most important guests. Eli and I were placed in the farthest corner of the room, next to a half-deaf great-aunt and a cousin I barely remembered. "At least we can eat in peace," I whispered. Eli pushed food around his plate. I could see it in his shoulders, he knew this wasn't an accident. At the main table, my mother's voice carried above the chatter. "Richard just closed that massive development deal downtown. They're already planning the nursery renovation. Only the best for my first grandchild." I winced. Eli was technically her first grandchild, though she rarely acknowledged it. His fork froze halfway to his mouth. I leaned close. "Don't let it get to you," I whispered. "I just wish she could see how awesome you are," he said softly. His loyalty cracked something in my chest. After lunch, Vivian rose to speak. She placed a hand on her rounded belly, her smile luminous. "We've been reading so many parenting books," she said. "Richard believes in firm boundaries with positive reinforcement. I think structure is so important. We plan to be very involved parents. Richard's even cutting back on work hours. Because children need stability, consistency, a mother and a father, committed to each other and to their family." The words floated through the air, heavy with implication. Heads turned, not subtly, toward me. Then Vivian's smile sharpened. "We're so blessed that our child will have a complete family unit." Laughter rippled, thin, awkward, complicit. My mother added, "Some women just make bad choices." But thankfully Vivian always knew how to make the right ones. The room tilted. Years of judgment boiled into one moment. I felt tears burning, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I started to rise, planning a quiet exit. That's when Eli's hand stopped me. He stood. Straight, steady, his voice carrying farther than I'd ever heard it. "Aunt Vivian," he said. "Should I tell everyone about Uncle Richard's other family?" The room collapsed into silence. Vivian blinked. "What did you say?" Richard, lounging by the fireplace, froze. The blood drained from his face. My mother clutched her pearls as if they might hold her upright. Guests exchanged nervous looks. Richard forced a laugh. Kids and their imaginations. Eli, buddy, what are you talking about? Eli didn't flinch. He pulled his phone from his pocket. Last Saturday I saw you at the Westfield Mall. You weren't alone. You were with a woman and 2 kids, a boy about my age and a little girl. They called you Daddy. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Richard stepped forward, his voice too loud. I meet clients with kids. Maybe you misunderstood. Eli swiped his screen and turned the phone around. On it, a photo, Richard, arm around a woman who was definitely not Vivian, children flanking him, smiling like a man with nothing to hide. Murmurs spread. People craned their necks to see. That's an invasion of privacy. Richard snapped. Leah, control your son. But Eli's voice remained calm. I found your other Facebook profile. Not Richard Harrison. Thomas Harris. You post pictures there with your wife, Caroline, and your kids. Even your dog, Cooper. Last month you uploaded vacation photos from Lake Tahoe, when you told Aunt Vivian you were at a business conference. Gasps. Guests whispering. One woman gathered her handbag and slipped toward the door. Vivian's face drained of color. Tears welled. Richard, she whispered, is this true? Richard's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. The illusion of perfection shattered, falling in pieces around us. And Eli, my 12-year-old son, stood in the center, calm and unwavering, holding the truth in his small hands like a torch no one else dared to lift. The photograph made its way through the room like a lit fuse. Guests leaned in, whispering, eyes darting between Richard's strained smile and Vivian's pale face. No, Richard said, his voice breaking. This is absurd. This child is making things up. I have the address too, Eli said quietly, almost gently. 722, Oakwood Drive. Blue house. Red door. The color drained completely from Richard's cheeks. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, the lie choking before it could form. Vivian made a sound, half gasp, half sob, and pressed both hands to her belly. How long, she whispered, staring at him as if the man she married had dissolved into a stranger before her eyes. How long, Richard? He reached for her, desperation seeping through his polished mask. Vivian, baby, it's complicated. You don't understand. There are custody issues, financial. Were you married to her before me? Her voice sliced through the hush like glass breaking. His silence answered for him. Get out, Vivian said, her voice eerily calm. Get out of my house. This is my house too. Richard snapped, but he didn't advance. The room had turned against him. Dozens of eyes glared, condemning, curious, horrified. Leave, Mom said suddenly, her voice sharper than I had ever heard. She rose from her chair, trembling, but resolute. You will not speak to my daughter, or my grandson, that way. Not after this. Leave this house before I call the police. The authority in her tone stunned even me. Richard's anger deflated, leaving him glaring in our direction. His face twisted. This is your fault, he hissed at me. You and your nosy brat. You couldn't stand to see Vivian happy. You had to ruin it. That's enough, my mother repeated, stepping closer, her frame small but vibrating with fury. Richard spat out a curse, grabbed his keys from the side table, and stormed toward the door. The slam echoed like a gunshot. Chaos erupted. Half the guests scattered immediately, clutching handbags, murmuring condolences to Vivian, eager to escape the wreckage of perfection gone wrong. Others lingered, faces lit with morbid curiosity, whispering in corners, phones already buzzing with the promise of gossip. Within 30 minutes the house was nearly empty. Only family remained, Vivian in her chair, Mom standing nearby as if her world had tilted off its axis, and Eli and me hovering uncertainly. I turned to my son, heart pounding. Eli, can we talk outside? On the patio, the afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the manicured lawn. Eli scuffed his sneaker against the stone. "How did you know all that?" I asked. "It started at the mall," he said. "I saw him with them." He looked different. Happy. Not like here, where he's always watching his phone or faking smiles. So I took a picture. Then I got curious. It wasn't hard to find his other Facebook account. Same profile picture, just cropped. 2 families. 2 lives. I stared at him, torn between pride and fear. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I wanted to be sure." And then, when Aunt Vivian and Grandma said those things about you, his voice cracked, and he looked up at me with eyes too wise for 12. It made me so mad. "They act like you're a failure. But Richard is the one lying to everyone." I pulled him into my arms. "You did nothing wrong. I'm proud of you. But you need to understand, revealing something like this changes everything. Not just for Richard, but for Vivian too." "I know." He leaned against me, his small frame steady. But somebody had to tell the truth. When we returned inside, the house felt cavernous, emptied of noise but heavy with shock. Vivian sat alone, mascara streaking down her cheeks, staring at the Welcome Baby Harrison banner as if it mocked her. Mom hovered uselessly, wringing her hands. I crossed the room, hesitating before sitting beside my sister. "Are you happy now?" she asked hoarsely. Her voice was ragged, brittle. "No," I said softly. "Of course not. Your son just destroyed my marriage." I steadied myself. "No. Richard destroyed your marriage. Eli only showed you the truth." Vivian's face crumpled. 7 years, she whispered. 7 years of my life built on lies. Despite everything she had said to me, all the comparisons and coldness, my heart broke for her. I placed a tentative hand on her arm. "I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve this." Tears spilled freely now. "What am I going to do? I'm 7 months pregnant with his child." "You're going to be okay," I told her, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. "You're strong. You'll have support. You're not alone." She let out a bitter laugh. "Support? From the sister I just humiliated in front of everyone?" I took a deep breath. That's what family really means. Being there even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Her eyes met mine, red-rimmed but searching. For the first time in years, I saw not competition, not superiority, just my sister. Mom reappeared, her face pale, her hands trembling. "I called your father," she murmured. "He's on his way from golf." She looked at us as if seeing us for the first time. "Mom," I said quietly, "we need to talk. All of us." She sat slowly across from us, shoulders sagging under the weight of an image shattered. For once, there was no lecture, no judgment. Only silence. "I just wanted what was best for both of you," she whispered. "I thought I was pushing you to succeed. To want more. By comparing me to Vivian," I said gently. "By treating Eli as less than." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong. I see that now. I put all my pride in Richard, and all the while, her voice broke. She couldn't finish. But we all knew." Vivian clutched her belly, eyes closing. "Now what happens?" she whispered. "Now," I said firmly, "we start being a real family. One that values honesty over appearances.